I went camping a few years ago when I was 32. I thought some time in the woods would help me relax. As a software engineer, I was often glued to my screen. I figured I knew how to set up a tent and build a fire. How hard could it be? I found a spot by a mountain lake away from the city's noise. I set up my camp and the sun dipped behind the trees. The place felt peaceful. That night I lit a fire and roasted some hot dogs. The flames flickered and the crackling sound was comforting. Around midnight I heard rustling nearby. I thought it was just a raccoon. But then I heard a whisper. I froze. Where was it coming from? I got up and looked around. Nothing. Just the dark woods. The next morning I went for a walk around the lake. Everything seemed normal. The sun was bright and the air felt fresh. I returned to my camp feeling good. But when I checked my backpack, it was slightly open. I thought I had zipped it shut. The flashlight I packed was gone. I felt uneasy but shrugged it off. I found another flashlight in my gear. I thought maybe I'd just forgotten to pack it. That evening, I tried to relax. As darkness crept in, I heard the rustling again. My heart raced. It felt closer this time. I strained to listen. Shadows moved near the trees. Then that whisper returned. I called out, "Hello?" No answer. It felt as if something was watching me. The next morning things got stranger. I noticed symbols carved into trees around my campsite. They were odd, not natural at all. I tried to shake it off. Maybe it was just some kids playing around. When I ventured into the campground, the other campers looked tense. They whispered and exchanged worried glances. I overheard bits of their conversation. They were talking about weird things happening nearby. As the sun set on my last night, I felt more anxious. I usually felt safe in nature, but not this time. I packed my gear early, eager to leave. I turned to head back to my car, but a voice stopped me. "Why are you here?" it whispered. My heart dropped. I turned around, nobody, just the empty woods. Just the empty. At that moment I felt I had disturbed something. I didn't want to stay another second. I hurried back to my car, my hands shaking. I drove away, glancing in my rearview mirror at the campsite. I felt a chill, like something had followed me. I never went back. The memories haunt me even now. Those 2 nights had a weight I can't shake. I still wonder about what I encountered. Was it real? Why did I feel so watched? I wonder if others have felt it too. I should have listened to my instincts and left sooner. I still think about it. I don't know if I'll ever go camping again. Chapter 2. It took me months to even consider camping again. The woods had become a haunting memory, one I pushed deep down. But last summer, a friend convinced me to join a group camping trip at a different location. I thought it might be therapeutic. Maybe I could reclaim my love for nature. The new spot was beautiful. Tall trees surrounded a wide clearing and a river ran nearby. The first night I felt a flutter of excitement. We set up our tents and gathered around a fire. People laughed, and the atmosphere was warm. I managed to forget about my previous experience, at least for a while, at least for that evening, as we shared stories and roasted marshmallows. I noticed a flash of movement near the edge of the clearing. I brushed it off as nighttime animals. But then it happened again. Someone else caught the movement too, and soon everyone was on edge, eyes darting toward the trees. I felt a familiar tension creeping back. Later, as the night grew darker, I heard something that stopped my heart. A whisper floated through the air just like that first camping trip. I turned to my friends, but they were chatting, oblivious. My pulse quickened. It was real, and I wasn't imagining it. I tried to focus on the fire, but fear gnawed at me. I decided to take a walk by the river. The water rushed past, noisy and lively, contrasting with the unease simmering inside me. As I wandered close to the edge, I spotted something shiny buried in the mud. Curiosity piqued. I reached down and pulled it out. It was an old, rusted trinket. A small metal figure shaped like an animal, adorned with strange markings that looked eerily similar to those I had seen before. Panic washed over me. I dropped the trinket back into the mud and stumbled back. I turned to head back to camp, but the whisper returned, more insistent this time. "Why do you disturb us?" it echoed, sending chills down my spine. I rushed back, practically tripping over my own feet. When I returned to the fire, I could see the laughter had faded. My friends were silent now, glancing nervously at the trees. "Did you hear that?" someone asked. I wasn't alone. They had heard it too. My heart sank. I had hoped it was just me. Then a shadow moved within the trees, large and looming. My instincts screamed. A feeling that something was watching us intensified. We all turned but saw nothing. Just the dark, silent woods. I couldn't shake the feeling that something was coming for us. I suggested we pack up, but the group was reluctant. They wanted to stay, to prove it was all in our heads. I felt trapped, like I was in a nightmare that wouldn't end. I watched the shadows, waiting for something to break the stillness. That night sleep didn't come easy. I lay awake, wrapped in my sleeping bag, listening to the sounds of the forest. And then, just before dawn, I heard it again. A soft voice close to my ear. "Leave this place." I bolted upright, filled with dread. I glanced around. All my friends were still sleeping, but I could feel the weight of something lurking just beyond the light of the fire. The morning sun didn't bring the comfort I had hoped. Instead, it revealed more signs of something odd. In the dirt around our campsite, more symbols had appeared overnight. I felt the bile rise in my throat. They weren't there when we arrived. Maybe this was worse than before. I gathered my stuff and knew I couldn't stay any longer. I had to find a way to escape this place. The whispers were back, and I felt a heavy presence watching us. I didn't know how or why, but I felt the pull of something dark as it beguiled the forest around me. As I turned to leave, I caught the eyes of one of my friends staring at me, pale and shaken. "Did you see what I saw?" they whispered urgently. "No," I replied, but my heart raced with knowing. Something was happening, and it was far from over. Chapter 3. The morning light hardly felt comforting as I stood frozen, weighing my options. The symbols imprinted in the dirt sent a wave of nausea crashing over me. I didn't want to be here any longer. I had to go, but the decision felt heavy. "Look at those," my friend whispered, motioning toward the symbols with trembling fingers. I followed their gaze. Each one seemed to pulse with a life of its own. They weren't just random shapes. They felt purposeful, as if they were trying to communicate something. "What do you think they mean?" I asked, though I already dreaded the answer. Their look was one of terror rather than curiosity. "Whatever it is, I don't like it. Maybe we should listen to the voice," another friend chimed in nervously, the suggestion barely escaping their lips before I shot them a glare. "It said to leave, right? What if we just—" "No," I interrupted sharply. "We stay together, and we pack up now." I didn't want to sound bossy, but the thought of splintering off scared me. I could feel that presence lurking, more tangible now. As we began to gather our things, I noticed something different. The air around us felt thick and heavy, like someone had wrapped us in a wet blanket. It felt almost suffocating. A rustling noise came from the trees, and we all froze, hearts racing anew. "What was that?" another friend whispered, their voice shaking. "I don't know," I replied, my own voice barely above a whisper. "But we need to hurry." As we hastily rolled up our sleeping bags and packed our gear, the feeling of being watched grew stronger. Shadows danced between the trees, flickering at the edge of my vision. Every sound blended into a muted roar. That's when I saw it. A figure emerged from the tree line, partially concealed by the thick brush. It was tall and dark, with long limbs that twisted unnaturally. My stomach dropped as I locked eyes with it. Its gaze pierced through me, and I couldn't look away. "Guys, we need to go, now!" I shouted, urgency flooding my voice. The others turned, their eyes widening in terror as they caught sight of what I saw. A few dropped their packs, panic setting in like a flood. We ripped our belongings from the ground, eager to escape whatever this thing was. Without speaking, we started moving, stumbling past the clearing and toward the woods. The whispers intensified. "Leave. Leave. Leave." swirling in our ears, as if the forest itself was rallying against us. We ran in a blind panic, the energy of the forest pressing in. I could still feel that gaze bearing down on us, its presence almost tangible. Then, just when I thought we might get away, a loud snap halted us in our tracks. "What was that?" someone gasped, voices quaking. I barely had time to respond before we were enveloped by a cacophony of rustling leaves and cracking branches. The shadow had moved closer. My heart raced and all thoughts of rationality fled. It was eating away at my sanity, and I urged everyone to move faster. We burst into a clearing, and that's when I noticed something strange in the ground. A deep hole, swirling with dark, oddly shimmering soil. Before I could process it, I saw something emerge from it. A hand, skeletal, and reaching upwards. I stumbled back, nearly losing my balance. "We need to get out of here," I screamed, but my voice drowned in the frenzy around us. My heart pounded, matching the rhythm of my fear. One last glance behind me and the shadow was gone. But its presence lingered, tangible and suffocating. The whispers had grown louder, and I felt the urge to run faster. The forest opened around us, and I could see the way back to the road. But something whispered within me that we weren't safe yet. Behind me, I swore I could hear laughter, mournful, echoing through the trees. What had I awakened in the woods, and would it let us leave? My feet moved before my mind could catch up, and I pushed ahead, hoping we'd make it out alive. Chapter 4. We made it back to the main trail just as the trees thinned out. Relief washed over me for a fleeting moment, but I didn't dare slow down. I glanced over my shoulder, half expecting to see the shadow lunging at us from the underbrush. The laughter still echoed in my ears, haunting and unnerving. Are we safe?" one of my friends panted, doubling over to catch their breath. "I don't know," I admitted, my voice shaky. We all shared worried glances. There was no comfort in the sunlight spilling over us. It felt wrong. "Did you see that thing?" another friend asked, their face pale. "What was it? What did we just witness back there?" Just focus," I replied, trying to keep my voice steady even though I could feel panic bubbling beneath the surface. "We need to keep moving until we're out of here." We trudged along the path, the tension thick and heavy. Each snap of a twig sent us leaping nervously, and whispers of fear floated between us. I couldn't shake the feeling that whatever we'd seen was still watching from the wood's edge. And then, as if the universe wanted to test our nerves even further, we stumbled upon that familiar clearing, the one with the symbols. No way," a friend whispered, disbelief warping their voice. "We can't be back here. We just left." A heavy silence fell over us. I could see the way the ground pulsated with energy, how the air seemed charged. The symbols looked even more vivid now, gleaming in the midday sun. "Let's turn around," I suggested, but a chill shot down my spine. Something felt drawn to us. My heart raced as I scanned the edges of the clearing. "Wait," another friend said suddenly, their face paling. "Look." We all turned just as the skeletal hand slipped back into the ground, leaving behind a trail of dark, shimmering soil. The hole gaped wider, and I felt a sick feeling rise in my throat. "What's happening?" I asked, my voice trembling. Before anyone could answer, the wind picked up, moving through the trees with a ferocious howl. I could feel pressure build against my skin, as if some unseen force was pushing us. I could hear the whispers again, but they weren't just in my head. They were coming from the hole. Phrases too muted to understand, weaving in a form of distorted symphony. "Run!" I screamed, instinct kicking in as the very earth seemed to pulse like a heartbeat, a warning of what lay beneath. We dashed back toward the path, panic thrusting us forward. Then, it happened. The ground surged, and from the hole a figure began to rise, a shape cloaked in shadows. I could barely make out its features, but I swore I saw a face twisted in agony. I stumbled but kept running, adrenaline fear washing through me. "Go, keep going," I shouted, the urgency biting at my throat. We raced past the symbols, the forest seeming to close in tighter around us. Then, with each step, the whispers morphed into something clearer, more pronounced. "Join us! Join us! Join us!" I felt as if I were on the verge of losing my grip on reality. Then I stumbled once more, falling hard against the ground. The others continued without me, their silhouettes blending with the terror of the forest, and for a terrible moment, I was all alone. Glimpses of the shadow danced at the corner of my vision as it began to close in. I scrambled to my feet, heart thundering, knowing I had to reach the others. But suddenly a sharp pain shot through me, pulling me back, a tether to the earth. Breathless, I tried to shout out, but no words came. Was this the end? Then everything went dark. Chapter 5. I gasped as I jolted awake, my heart racing in my chest. The darkened forest loomed around me, heavy and suffocating. I blinked rapidly, trying to gather my thoughts. Where were my friends? Had I really been left behind? I pushed myself up from the cold, damp ground, brushing leaves and dirt off my clothes. The faintest sounds of muffled screams echoed through the trees, mixing with the rustle of leaves. My throat was dry, and the fear threatened to tighten its grip around me once more. "Guys!" I shouted into the void, but my voice felt swallowed by the woods. A chill ran through me, and I stood up fully. I knew the clearing was nearby, but I didn't want to step back into its eerie embrace. Still, it was my only chance to regroup with my friends. I took a deep breath, squaring my shoulders, and took a step forward. As I crept through the underbrush, I heard it, near whispering, a soft chant like a beckoning call. It sounded like my name mixed in with the other voices. I hesitated. Was I hearing things, or was something more sinister at work? Then a strange glow emerged from deeper in the forest, illuminating the path ahead. It pulsed gently, almost inviting. My instincts screamed for me to turn back, but the urge to find my friends pushed me onward. "Please, where are you?" I whispered, my voice shaky. The closer I got, the uneasier I felt. Just ahead, the clearing stretched before me, the symbols still gleaming under the strange light. Panic clawed at my insides as I stepped into the open space. My friends were gone, but the shadowy figure from earlier lingered at the edge, its form more distinct now. A face twisted in despair stared back at me, and I could see sadness woven with rage. "Why did you leave?" The voice rasped, hollow and chilling. I stumbled backward, unable to grasp what was happening. I didn't leave anyone," I stuttered, a lump forming in my throat. "No," it replied, drawing closer. "You're not meant to be here. Join us." I shook my head vigorously, refusing to let its words flood my mind. I turned to flee, but the symbols flashed brighter and hotter, wrapping around my feet like a chain. I struggled to break free, but it only tightened, dragging me closer to the center. Suddenly the atmosphere shifted. The wind died down and the forest grew quiet. The light dimmed, revealing another figure, one I recognized. It was one of my friends, their eyes wide with horror. "Help!" they screamed, their face pale like a ghost. "It's all a part of it. Don't listen to them." My breath hitched in my throat as the reality of their betrayal settled in. They had been drawn into this madness before me. I had to escape. But how could I leave with them still trapped? As if sensing my hesitation, the shadow figure moved closer, extending its hand. I could feel the oppressive energy radiating from it, a force trying to wind itself around my consciousness. "Join us, or suffer," it echoed again, the voices climbing in urgency. I turned my back, desperation igniting within me. I would not become another lost soul in this endless cycle. Fighting against the grip of the symbols, I lunged toward the edge of the clearing. That's when the symbols flared back to life and the ground began to quake violently beneath me. Power surged like electricity and the whispers turned into a deafening roar. I gritted my teeth and ran, feeling the fabric of the forest tear behind me, dragging the chanting with it. Whatever waited in the shadows would not let me go easily. Then, something broke through the darkness, and the final call sent me into an even deeper abyss. Chapter 6. I landed hard onto the forest floor, my body colliding with a bed of leaves and branches that cushioned but didn't fully protect me. Dazed, I forced myself to sit up. Around me was a dense fog that cloaked everything in an unsettling gray. It felt wrong, as if the air itself held onto whispers of despair. "Get up! You need to move!" a voice called from somewhere within the mist. I squinted against the veil, straining to see. It sounded like my friend Ethan. A surge of hope momentarily broke through my fear. "Ethan? Is that you?" "Yeah, it's me, but we have to hurry." He sounded frantic. I pushed myself to my feet, though my legs felt unsteady. The swirling mist seemed alive, wrapping around me like fingers trying to pull me back into darkness. "Where are you?" I yelled, my voice shaky, but I didn't want to give in to panic. "Just follow my voice," he called out again. I moved toward the sound, every step heavy and uncertain. With each breath, the chill surrounding me seemed to condense tightly in my chest. Finally, I broke free from the fog, emerging into a small clearing much like the one I had just fled. But this one felt different. The symbols that had once glowed ominously now lay scattered on the ground, dull and lifeless. A strange calmness filled the air, interrupted only by the faint echo of my friend's voice. "Over here," I heard him call again, but the urgency in his tone made my heart race anew. I dashed toward the sound, hoping I wouldn't find another trap waiting for me. Then as I rounded a cluster of twisted trees, the mist began to part. I spotted Ethan standing, pale and trembling. Relief washed over me like a balm. "Ethan, thank God you're okay." But his expression was taut, his eyes wide with fear. "It's not safe here," he urged, gesturing toward the shadows. "They're close." "Who? What's going on?" I stammered, trying to take in my surroundings. "The forest, it's feeding on our fear. The figures, the whispers, they draw strength from us," he said. "We need to find the others and leave. Now." Before I could respond, I heard a rustling behind me. My heart dropped as a figure emerged from the fog. It was another friend, Sarah. Her face was gaunt, eyes glassy as if she were in a trance. "Help us," she murmured, stepping into the clearing. But the tone of her voice sent shivers racing down my spine. Something was wrong. "We're waiting." "Sarah," I shouted, stepping forward. "Snap out of it. We need to." Suddenly she froze. Her gaze shifted behind me, and a chilling smile crept onto her face. "They told me you'd come." I turned just in time to see shapes lingering at the edge of the clearing, shadows clinging to the trees as though they were alive. The whispers surged back, louder and more insistent this time, flooding my ears with chants filled with longing and sorrow. "Run!" Ethan yelled, breaking my momentary paralysis. I didn't need to be told twice. I grabbed Sarah's arm and pulled her towards the opening, but she resisted, her eyes wide with an otherworldly fixation. "We belong here," she said softly, the smile never wavering. Panic gripped me. I couldn't lose her too. I felt Ethan's hand on my back, steering me away from the encroaching shadows. I pushed forward, yelling, "Don't listen. We need to fight this." Just as we reached the edge of the clearing, the shadows lunged at us. The ground shook again and vines sprouted, grasping for our ankles. I stumbled, falling forward, and the last thing I saw was Sarah's face, caught between fear and acceptance. Then everything went dark again. Chapter 7. I gasped as consciousness returned, my breath coming in ragged bursts. The darkness faded slowly, returning to that oppressive gray fog. I tried to sit up, but my body felt heavy, like I was anchored to the ground. "Are you okay?" A familiar voice drifted toward me. I recognized it as Ethan's, but it sounded distant, as if he were in another realm. "Ethan?" I croaked. I turned my head, blinking rapidly to clear the haze. Suddenly the fog parted a little, revealing Ethan kneeling beside me. His expression was a mix of worry and determination. "Stay close," he urged, glancing toward the shifting shadows that flitted at the edge of our vision. The unsettling whispers grew louder, more pronounced. They intertwined with the rustling leaves, creating an unnerving symphony that scraped against my nerves. "What happened?" I groaned, pushing myself up with effort. My arm felt bruised and my head throbbed, but I forced myself to focus. You got pulled under." He frowned deeply. "I thought I lost you, but then I pulled you out." His voice trembled slightly. "We can't stay here long." I took a deep breath, trying to shake the exhaustion. What about Sarah? Is she? Ethan shook his head, panic flashing in his eyes. I don't know, I lost sight of her. She was right behind us. We need to keep moving before... A low growl interrupted him, reverberating through the forest. I looked around, heart racing, and saw silhouettes creeping closer, their movements disjointed, prowling with unnatural grace. What is that? I whispered, my voice barely above a breath. The forest, Ethan replied. Whatever is feeding on our fear, it's coming to collect. We have to go now. With a surge of adrenaline, I scrambled to my feet. Stumbling slightly, I grabbed Ethan's wrist. Which way? Over there. He pointed to a narrow path that wound between the underbrush, too obscured by fog to see clearly. Without waiting, we dashed toward it, driven by a primal urge to escape. We ran, darting through trees, their branches clawing at us as if trying to grab hold. The whispers followed, echoing our fear. Shadows swirled around us, morphing into forms that were never fully visible, dancing just out of reach. Then, amidst the chaos, a sudden thought struck me. What if we were walking into a trap? My instincts screamed at me to stop, but I pushed forward. Ethan, how do we escape this? There's something deeper in the forest, he shouted over the cacophony. A source. If we destroy it, it might weaken whatever's holding us here. But what if it's a trick? I felt the weight of dread settle back in my stomach. Do you have a better idea? He shot back, urgency sharpening his voice. Before I could respond, we burst through the trees and emerged in a larger clearing. The ground beneath us was oddly dry, with dark stones arranged in a circular pattern at its center. Their surface was marked with the same symbols I had seen earlier, but this time they glowed faintly, pulsing like a heartbeat. That's it, Ethan breathed. The source. Then everything around us shifted. The whispers grew frantic, rising to a cacophony that screamed for us to turn back. Shadows converged, and for the first time, I saw their eyes, glowing, searching, hungry. Together, Ethan yelled, and I nodded, though fear knotted my gut. We stepped toward the stones, ready to confront whatever darkness awaited us. Just as we reached the edge, a scream pierced the air. It wasn't just any scream. It was Sarah's. My heart sank as I locked eyes with Ethan, who mirrored my own rising fear. We need to save her, I shouted, torn between our task and my instinct to help my friend. But then I caught the creeping shadows at the edges of the clearing. They surged closer, waiting for us to falter. Wait! Ethan glanced around, desperation painting his features. I'll distract them, you go. You have to break that circle. I hesitated, but the urgency in his voice pushed me forward. No, I can't leave you. Do it, he ordered, moving toward the encroaching figures. With my heart pounding, I made a choice. I dashed toward the stones, fear pushing me to act. As I reached out to touch the glowing symbols, something inside me sparked, a sudden recognition that this was just the beginning. Then everything shattered. Chapter 8. The world exploded into chaos. A blinding flash erupted from the stones, enveloping me in a searing light. I felt the ground tremble beneath my feet, and the shadows recoiled, howling in pain. Then the light faded. The clearing looked different now, emptier, or maybe I just felt less trapped. My heart raced as I turned back to find Ethan. He was grappling with a dark figure, desperately trying to hold it back. Ethan, I shouted, fear cutting through my skin like ice. He looked at me, his face strained. Break the circle, do it now. The urgency in his voice jolted me back. I pivoted to the stones. They glowed brighter, pulsating with energy that felt both welcoming and terrifying. I had to focus. I braced myself, reaching out to the nearest stone, hoping to find a way to reverse this nightmare. As my fingers brushed against the symbol, the pulsation intensified, sending a surge of power through my hand and up my arm. My vision blurred, and memories flickered. Visions of us camped by the fire, laughing, sharing stories. The weight of our friendship pressed against my heart, and anger rose inside me. I wanted to protect Ethan and Sarah, More shadows rushed toward us, their forms twisting in the light, clawing at the air. The whispers escalated to a deafening roar. I was so close. I had to do this. Suddenly, a voice broke through the chaos, deep and resonant. "You do not belong here." It echoed from the stones, vibrating through the ground. I knew this voice. It was the same one that haunted my dreams, that filled the silence with dread. "No!" I yelled, strengthening my resolve. "We won't let you win." Drawing upon the memories of happier moments, I pushed my energy into the stone, imagining the love and laughter we had shared. I felt it surge through me, a beacon of light against the encroaching darkness. The stone heated under my palm, and a blinding flash enveloped the clearing again. The shadows shrieked in unison, drawing back as if repelled by the light. I could see Ethan still struggling with the looming figure. I had to finish this. I focused harder, feeling the power inside me coalesce. "I command you to leave," I shouted, pouring all my will into the stone. The light burst forth brighter than before, cascading through the clearing like a cleansing fire. The ground shook violently. I knew something was changing. It felt like the air ripped apart, the darkness unraveling at the seams. The shadows wailed in fury, and as I opened my eyes, I saw them dissipate, pulled into the bright ether. Then silence. Ethan collapsed beside me. "Did it work?" he asked, breathing heavily. I think so." I looked around the clearing. The stones dimmed, their glow fading. The oppressive fog began to lift, revealing the silhouettes of distant trees, but as relief washed over me, a chilling realization struck. Where was Sarah? I spun around, scanning the edges of the clearing, my stomach churning. "What about Sarah? We need to find her." Ethan's gaze darkened. "She might still be trapped. We can't leave without her." I felt the urgency return, the need to act driving us forward. Just as we began to move, a sudden thud echoed in the distance. That's when I saw it. A figure slumped against a tree. It was Sarah, but something didn't look right. Shadows lingered around her, creeping closer. "No, we have to hurry," I yelled, my heart racing again as we raced toward her, praying it wasn't too late. Chapter 9. I sprinted toward Sarah, my lungs burning as the shadows swirled around her like hungry wolves. "Ethan, hurry," I gasped. Every instinct screamed that we needed to reach her quickly. I could see her face, pale and drawn, her eyes fluttering as if trapped in a nightmare. "What do we do?" Ethan shouted, scanning the area. "Can you call the stones again?" "Not now," I cried, clenching my fists. We didn't have time for experimentation. I had seen how the light pushed them back before, but it seemed to have drained the stone's strength. "We have to get her out of here." As we reached her, I dropped to my knees beside Sarah. The shadows pulsed, darting dangerously close. I grabbed her shoulder and shook her gently. "Sarah, can you hear me?" Her eyes flickered open, but they were clouded, as if she were looking through a fog. "Help me," she whispered, her voice weak and choked. Before I could respond, the shadows surged forward, tendrils reaching for us like dark serpents. Ethan stepped in front of me, fists raised, grounding himself against the impending darkness. "Get her! I'll hold them off." "No," I shouted, but the urgency forced my feet into motion. I pulled Sarah's arm over my shoulder, trying to lift her. She was heavier than I expected, her body limp. "We need to go, I can't leave you." Suddenly, something cold wrapped around my ankle. I stumbled, barely catching myself as I looked down. A shadowy hand tried to drag me back. "Ethan," I yelled, panic flooding my chest. "I'm coming." He grabbed my arm, yelling at me to keep moving, but his grip slipped as more shadows latched onto him, pulling him back with a brutal yank. "Ethan," I screamed, panic swelling in my throat. I felt Sarah slipping from my grasp. My heart raced and desperation filled me. I couldn't lose both of them. "Just go," Ethan shouted, his voice cracking. I could see determination etched on his face, even as the darkness clawed at him. "Get her out. I'll find you." I didn't want to leave him, but there was no choice. I turned back to Sarah, focusing on her hazy form. "Come on." We have to escape. With renewed urgency, I hoisted her toward the edge of the clearing. The shadows writhed behind us, their hisses growing in intensity. My heart pounded in my ears. I can't move, Sarah whimpered, her breathing shallow. Trust me, I said, digging deep for strength. The trees loomed ahead, sunlight filtering through their leaves, the promise of safety. Just hold on. As we neared the tree line, I heard a mighty roar erupt from the shadows. I glanced back only for a moment. Ethan was still fighting, shadows spilling around him like ink. Then, without warning, the ground beneath us shook violently again. The shadows seemed to pulse as if in rage. An explosion of light erupted from the stones. I squinted, shielding my eyes, and suddenly, everything went dark. I stumbled, pulling Sarah tightly to me. A cold rush of wind swept through the clearing, stinging my face. I closed my eyes, waiting for the worst. But then I felt something shift. The shadows pulling me back felt lighter, as if their grip was loosening. What's happening? Sarah whispered, her eyes wide with confusion and fear. I don't know, I admitted, my voice trembling. But we have to keep moving. As we pushed through the trees, I couldn't shake the feeling that we weren't safe yet. Then I heard Ethan's voice again, but it was faint. Run! He yelled, trembling with urgency. I turned, my heart racing. Ethan! But something else caught my eye. A figure emerging from the shadows, moving with an unsettling grace. A chill shot through my bones as I faced this new threat. I could barely breathe. We weren't out of this yet. Anxiety clawed at my insides. What had I awakened? Chapter 10. Keep moving, Sarah, I urged. My voice strained as anxiety gripped my chest like a vice. The shadows twisted around us in a spiral of malevolence, their whispers growing louder, intermingling with the desperate calls of my friend. I looked back just in time to see Ethan struggle against the grasp of the dark tendrils that wrapped around his body. I can't, he gasped, his voice laced with pain. Get out of here, he shouted, somehow managing to hold himself steady against the onslaught. I felt a piece of my heart shatter at the sight. I wanted to help him, but I couldn't let Sarah go limp beside me. We have to get her to the road, I yelled, my voice rising with an edge of panic. The trees loomed, echoing the fear coursing through my veins. As we stumbled through the forest, Sarah's weight sank against my side. Her breathing was shallow and irregular, her body limp like a marionette with its strings cut. I couldn't let myself dwell on what was happening to Ethan. If we didn't escape soon, I feared we'd all be consumed by whatever haunted these woods. Stay close, just a little more. I pushed forward, dodging branches that reached out, grasping as if the forest wanted to claim us. I felt the pull of the shadows behind me, but I could not look back. I had to keep going for all of us. Then, the fog began to thicken again, swirling around our feet trying to ensnare us. I felt it pressing in, a tangible weight on my mind, whispering furiously. Why do you fight? You can't escape. No, I gasped, shaking my head, willing the darkness to recede. I had to focus. Not today. Suddenly, a piercing scream sliced through the air, a scream so familiar I froze in shock, feeling dread crawl up my spine. My blood ran cold. It was Ethan. Go! He screamed, desperation clawing at his tone. You have to go now. The world shifted as panic spurred me onward, my instincts shutting down every conflicting thought. Come on, Sarah, I urged, pulling her along. Suddenly I felt the ground give slight tremor beneath my feet. A warning. Shadows flooded around us, and I noticed a shape emerging from the darkness in front of us. A figure, tall and looming, blocking our path. Leave what's left of your soulmate, it hissed from somewhere within its depths, embodying a voice that sounded achingly familiar. Ethan, I gasped, and the depth of despair squeezed my chest. We have to help him. No, Sarah whimpered weakly, shaking her head, her grip falling further from me. Please, and don't let it take you too. The faceless figure loomed closer, its form shifting in and out of clarity, tainted by that same unsettling glow I'd seen in the stones. Join us. it whispered, a dark invitation laced with deceit. No. My voice rang out, firm despite the hollow fear that churned wildly inside. I won't leave him. I ripped my gaze away from Sarah and stepped forward, feeling the presence wield its weight against my heart. But a sudden piercing thought seized me. What if I had to confront this darkness instead of run away from it? Ethan, hold on, I shouted, trying to bolster both our resolve as the figure edged closer. I needed to reach him, to pull him from that grip of shadows. I could feel the magic of the stones still nestled within me, a surge waiting to be unleashed. Not this time, I breathed, digging deep for strength. I reached for the light that illuminated the memories of us camping under the stars, the evenings wrapped in laughter and joy. Simultaneously, I drew on the pulse of shared camaraderie, on love that had united us through the darkness. We are more than fear, we are friendship, we are light. The shadows recoiled as I collapsed the tendrils of light into a shimmering aura, casting it around me. The forest quaked, and the figure faltered, its devouring smile wavering as I pressed forward. Ethan! I raised my hand, exuding a beacon of brilliance against encroaching despair, fueling my voice with hope. Together, you can fight. We need to break free. I felt the vibrations of my own spirit collide with the darkness, igniting a spark that surged deeper than fear. The shadows twisted and shrieked, retreating as fragments of light spread like wildfire, illuminating the bleakness. Ethan's form emerged from the surrounding darkness, wavering but alive, and I could see his eyes shining like stars as realization ignited within him. We're getting out, I bellowed, driven by sheer determination, relentless against the shadows that encircled us. With renewed vigor, I surged forward, pulling Ethan from the dark tendrils' hold as I turned, backing away from the looming threat. The shadows dissipated, shrieking in defeat as we reunited. But the forest felt alive beneath our feet, a reminder that we still had a long way to go before freedom. Now let's go, I gasped, dragging Ethan's weary form toward the light. As we pushed through the looming darkness of the woods, leaving behind whatever shadows had sought to lay claim to us, I couldn't shake the feeling of eyes on us, shadows flickering on the edge. In an instant, the forest fell silent, and I stumbled into the opening that led back towards the outskirts. For the first time in what felt like an eternity, I took a breath of the cool evening air, tasting freedom on my lips. But I could still feel the weight of the past pressing upon my shoulders, the knowledge that something darker lingered just beyond the trees. Do you think it's over? Ethan whispered, glancing back with concern etched across his features. I opened my mouth to respond, but all I could manage was a thoughtful silence, uncertainty swirling like the shadows behind us. I didn't want to name what we had encountered, nor confront the haunting emotions clawing at my mind. I still wondered. What had really happened? Had the forest's darkness truly been vanquished, or was it merely lying in wait, waiting for the right moment to strike again? I don't know, I finally said, my voice barely above a whisper. Time would tell, and whatever followed us was still shrouded in mystery, endlessly lingering in the corners of my mind. But for now, at least, I had a friend by my side, and we would keep moving forward together, not looking back. Or at least try not to.